They say people don't believe in heroes anymore. Well, damn them! You and me, Max, we're gonna give them back their heroes. Hello YouTubers, my name is Frederick Lopez and you're on a new episode of Action Reaction in which I go over my reaction and review of classic action films. In today's episode we're going to be going over the 1979 classic film directed by George Miller called Mad Max. Very, very classic film. It's the film that started it all practically. Started Mad Max 2, aka The Road Warrior here in the States. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, and then last year's hit, Mad Max Fury Road. Now, it's not entirely post-apocalyptic, even though it is a post-apocalyptic film. And it's before it gets to the Wasteland era that was in the sequels. The world's on the verge of getting towards that type of post-apocalyptic environment, but this is like a little bit before that, but definitely after a lot of the stuff that was mentioned at the beginning of The Road Warrior. Now, George Miller, he used to work at an emergency room, and basically he would see injuries from vehicles and motorcycles, and kind of got the idea from that to make a film called Mad Max. He met Byron Kennedy, who is a film student. They got together and made this little film called Mad Max. Now, as you all know, the film stars Mel Gibson in one of his very early roles as Max Rockatansky. He's a police enforcer. And he has a family still and everything. He's very civilized, and he's kind of like on the verge of snapping. He has to go after these crazy people that are out there, and you can tell he's on the verge of becoming one of them, and he doesn't want to. He still wants to be a very sane person. He still wants to be himself, but he feels a toll that his job is taking on him. Now, when auditioning for the role, Mel Gibson actually went to audition with his sister. She was reading for a part. And he had a bar fight the night before. Got into a big fight. Appeared all black and blue, bruised, everything. And they saw him when his sister was reading. And they said, hey, we need some freaks in this movie, so come back in 3 weeks. So Mel Gibson returned 3 weeks later. Of course, his wounds had healed, and they didn't recognize him, so they asked him to read for the part. And then what do you know? He ends up getting the lead. So that's pretty incredible. Other than that, the film stars Joanne Samuel as Jessie, Mad Max's wife. Hugh Keys-Byrne as the toe cutter. He's also Morton Joe in Fury Road. Steve Bisley as Max's partner, Jim Goose. Tim Burns as Johnny the Boy. Roger Ward as Fief, Max's police chief. Vincent Gill as the Knight Rider. And then Jeff Perry as Bubba Zanetti. Among many, many, many other people in the film. So as far as story goes, it's not entirely as action-packed as, say, The Road Warrior. It's kind of a build-up and exposition to how we get to those in the sequels. But pretty much it starts off with a chase. Very action-packed start from the very beginning. It was crazy because it's before CGI. It wasn't very big budget, so it was all guerrilla filmmaking. They didn't even have film permits. George Miller and them just basically filmed certain parts without permits, and they got some help from later on police officials to close down some of the roads for filming, but they just pretty much did it on the spot and just filmed as is, which is pretty incredible because they go over through some ballsy stuff in the film. This film had a profound effect on me as an individual. I got into it in the summer of 1999. I was 8 years old when I first saw this. Ended up catching that one, Road Warrior, Beyond Thunderdome. Fell in love with the trilogy, and it was actually one of the films that inspired me to become a filmmaker, which is crazy because I mean, a lot of other films influenced me, but this was the one where I was just like, if I were to make a film, I wouldn't mind living up to that. And it's just great, not only as an action film, but as a regular motion picture. It starts off, there's a chase, and there's this guy who calls himself the Knight Rider, and he's just like wreaking havoc, running from the police, and Max is introduced slowly. Max stops this guy called the Knight Rider after he causes just miles of carnage. And Max just like, I'm tired of this. And he's talking to his wife, and he's just a regular family man. He works as a police enforcer, and the world's kind of a little bit in shambles. It's like on the verge, like I was saying earlier. His partner, Goose, is his friend. Anyway, upon reading that news, a gang that the Knight Rider belonged to is coming after Max and the rest of the police there. This motorcycle gang who's just a force to be reckoned with. They just pillage and wreck everything that comes into their path. So they come into town. They cause some trouble. Now, I don't want to get too in depth here for people who haven't seen it, because there's probably some people who haven't seen the first Mad Max. They're probably only familiar with Fury Road or just seen Beyond Thunderdome or Road Warrior. A lot of people think Road Warrior is the first one. So they cause some havoc and everything. And they use one of their men, Johnny Boy, to be like mentally insane. He keeps causing them trouble. And Max is just tired of it. He wants out. And him and Goose end up investigating different crimes that the motorcycle gang is doing. And pretty much they get to Goose and burn him alive. He's not dead, but he's totally burned. And Max, after seeing his partner get attacked, just tells his police chief, like, I'm out, okay? I need to get out while I still can. Every day I'm out there, I feel like I'm becoming more and more like them, more savage. And there has to be a line. I'm a police enforcer. I can't be like one of them, but the road's consuming everyone the way the world is right now. And Lieutenant Fief, the line he says is just like, people don't believe in heroes anymore. Well, damn them. Me and you, Max, we're going to give them back their heroes. And he gives this whole speech, and Max is just like, I'm retired. I want out of here. I want to spend time with my family while I still can, while I'm still sane. He's like, okay, then I'm going to give you some vacation. You think it over. And he's just like, I'm retiring. I was just like, well, if you still feel the same afterwards, fine by me. So he leaves, but the motorcycle gang does not drop it. The toe cutter and his right-hand man, Bubba Zanetti, with their motorcycle gang, is still looking for this Max Rockatansky. So in the middle of the film, it kind of slows down, and we have Max and his wife with their little toddler kid, and they're just spending some time together. And then they need to get their car fixed, and the automotive man is working with that biker gang, and he leads them to there. He's working with that biker gang. So his wife goes off to get some ice cream, and she finds one of the men there. They follow her back, and then the automotive guy said, I know where they're going. So they're at a relative's place, and pretty much, to make a long story short, the motorcycle gang finds Max and his family. Max is somewhere else. He's looking for the guys who the wife thought were there. Anyways, they have the kid, the old lady, the wife, the kid, they leave, but their car breaks down, and as she runs, the motorcycle gang's coming close to their motorcycles, and they run over the kid and his wife, and Max just comes in, and it's a very, very sad scene. It's been replicated in movies. I think of Thomas Jane's The Punisher from 2004, very reminiscent of Mad Max. But he like runs over there and just like loses it. They go to the hospital. The kid's dead, and his wife is missing her arm and leg and is basically in a vegetative state. And Max is just like a zombie. So like he just is really frustrated, and that's when he breaks, and that's what gets to the name of Mad Max. It doesn't really become Mad Max. The Mad Max we all know and love from the sequels, he doesn't become that person until the very end of this film. And when his wife is just lost and his kid's dead, that's when he breaks. So he goes and he basically steals a V8 Interceptor from the police station and then just hunts them down. It's like a revenge film, like in the glory of like RoboCop or Punisher, like I said. Unforgiven, just like goes after each and every one of them. He gets a little bit injured here and there, but ultimately he gets his vengeance and then just drives the roads. He becomes like them at the end. The road is the only thing, his only life. And that's how he becomes a road warrior. Keep a long story short without being too descriptive. I did have some spoilers, but go watch it. There's more in there that I missed. What can I say? The action and cinematography is just all around excellent. The car chases, not only was it real, but the editing makes it seem a lot more fast paced in parts. It's just very, very frantic. And George Miller, when he went to make this film, he said he wanted to make a silent film with sound, and by that he meant like kinetic images. You could watch this and it'd be filmed like a silent film. You wouldn't need any sound, but it does have sound, so that adds another layer to it. And he did that even more so in Fury Road, but this was the very start of it, and you can see his directorial approach in this film that you would see in later films of his. It's just all around excellent, I feel. Not only does it get the story right, but like the action parts deliver, and it makes it great. It's one thing to have all explosions and chases and everything, but without a strong story, those are kind of meaningless, and it's kind of style over substance. Well, luckily, the style and substance are very gritty and very real in Mad Max. And that's one thing that really separates his films from the other action films, is how real and just kind of like downright nasty it gets, as far as just like the brutality of the gangs and like Mad Max and that whole world going on to this like post-apocalyptic. The music by Brian May is very, very good. I feel it really adds a lot of energy. That little dun 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 dun. Especially when he gets his V8 Interceptor and is out just to kick some ass and get the toe cutter and Bubba's and Eddie and just fuck up some people. I just love the music. And then it also has moments of peril, especially when they're after the wife, or when there's like certain like people that the motorcycle gang try to kill. It just gives a very frantic and scary yet terrifying feeling. It's just really, really good as far as the music. It's very basic, not too bombast, but it's very controlled and fits the mood for each scene, and also cuts along with the editing of certain images. But it was very good, considering the film is shot in 12 weeks around Melbourne, Australia for only $350,000, which is kind of a lot, but not so much right now. But for the budget, it's pretty darn impressive. They do stuff that I haven't even seen that $200 million films do lately, at least for real. I mean, they did some pretty incredible stuff in this picture, let me say. So after the film's released, it came out in 1979 in Australia, but it wasn't released in the States until the beginning of 1980. And basically, Mel Gibson was unknown at this time. He was like in his 20s. So like, he wasn't in Beyond Thunderdome. He wasn't even Martin Riggs yet. This film was made before Mel Gibson was Martin Riggs in Lethal Weapon. How crazy is that? Anyway, because of that, and because we weren't really, I guess, familiar with Australian accents, they went with a dubbed version, which is basically on the VHS. And this VHS is kind of old, I have. It even has like the old Good Times VHS on there. But anyway, yeah, it wasn't Mel Gibson's voice or anybody's voice, so it sounded a bit hokey, in my opinion. And you don't have to worry about it now, because since the DVD and this Blu-ray, they've gone back to the original Australian track. So basically, they didn't do that good. It's very polarizing when it first came out, which I can see why. Even people today, I don't think could handle this as much, even though some of the effects might be dated. But still, it was released, didn't really perform that well. So when it came time for Road Warrior to come out, or Mad Max 2, they figured since the first one didn't do that well, and people didn't really know it very much, why release a film called Mad Max 2? So that's why it got changed in the United States to The Road Warrior. It's not a bad name, it's a pretty cool name. But yeah, that's just a brief history. The action, there's just like a lot of stunts, car ramps. The V8 Interceptor stuff is just fantastic. It just runs over bikes. I love it when he gets Johnny Boy handcuffs and just like, you know what, I'm going to let you live, but you're either going to have to cut through your foot or get blown up. And just leaves him there. It's just cold-blooded at the end. I just love that last explosion. We're just like, dun, na, 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 no, 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 no. Dun, 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 and then just goes off the road. Just fantastic. Perfect segue into Road Warrior, but it's really, really great, and Mel Gibson at his earliest, and he just has that charisma and star power. Like when his introduction, they just slowly introduce him through like the rearview mirror or just like a hand, and then they finally show him just gets his sunglasses off and looks at the explosion. He just has that star power, and just overall protagonist. He finally in this is a hero in a way. Like the world's heading towards that. He becomes just like one of them, but in a way, this whole film is like an origin of a man who becomes brutal enough to pillage and go after those who do others wrong in a way. It's just like the Wild West. He becomes basically the man with no name from the Dollars trilogy. And that's what's great about it. It has certain tropes and characteristics and themes that are in like westerns and other different stories. It's just with vehicles and post-apocalyptic. But that's just my quick little retrospective over Mad Max. It's a film that is near and dear to my heart. And I give Mad Max a 4.5 out of 5. It's kind of a perfect film, really. There's certain things, but ultimately, I give it a 4.5 out of 5. A very well-made action film, in my opinion. Probably one of the best. And it's interesting seeing the world it presents. It's not the other Mad Maxes, but it's interesting seeing how a world could become that way. And very much, it feels very real. I mean, even though it's the 70s, I could like go outside in Texas at country roads or just barren wastelands, see decrepit buildings, economic turmoil, and I'm like, that's the world of Mad Max. It feels just so visceral. Even to this day, even though it came out in 1979, I could see this future happening. Maybe it is happening, you know? But very great performances. Hugh Keith Burns as Toe Cutter is just so damn menacing, and so is Bubba Zanetti. Now in the Australian version, they're acting so much better because the U.S. dub, it's just cheesy. It's just cheesy where he's very menacing and just out there and crazy. And I like the chemistry Max and his wife have together. Their little sign language thing saying, "I love you, I'm crazy about you." It's just fantastic. Goose and him are like real friends. Which, if you're named Goose, be careful, because if it's a movie, you're going to die. Pretty much, Mad Max and Top Gun taught me. If your name is Goose, you're going to be dead. Especially if you're the friend of the main hero. But anyway, and Mel Gibson. I mean, Mel Gibson, it's just like the start of greatness here. Both from George Miller and his direction, writing, filmmaking, and then like Mel Gibson as an actor. You see that raw emotion and intensity in his eyes, but he gets sad and mad unlike anybody I've ever seen on film. It's just so organic. It just feels so real. So when he does lose everything, you just feel for him. You're with him. You feel everything he's going through. And you're just like, get those bastards. And he just gets mad, gets his V8, and just goes out and just like hunts them down. And you're with him as an audience member. And that's great. That's the greatest thing about a good action movie, is when you're with the hero and all their motivations and you're just rooting for him. And that's what makes it such a great action movie. Besides all the stunts, explosions, and just fast-paced editing, the story behind it, it makes all those scenes feel earned. And that's what I love about it. So 4.5 out of 5. That's just my quick little reaction over Mad Max. I probably could go into more, but that's just my thoughts for right now. Kind of overwhelmed. But definitely check out Mad Max from 1979 if you haven't. Especially if you've seen the sequels. And if you haven't seen any Mad Max films, well, start with this one and go to the others, because it's going to be a hell of a ride. They just keep on getting better and better. Especially towards Fury Road. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it for Action Reaction. Tune in for the next episode in which I'll go over another Mel Gibson classic from 1987 called Lethal Weapon. Enjoy, guys.